or choose listing locations from a short-term
Boy, they got a
rental
bunch of stuff
registry
on there,
created
huh?
by the city.
Colleagues, the City of Portland has been a national leader in short-term rental policy setting, working with platforms such as Airbnb and HomeAway. Portland was the first city in the nation to strike a tax collection deal with short-term rental platforms back in the year 2014. In that same year, Portland was also one of the first cities in the nation to legalize short-term rentals in residential neighborhoods. Since 2014, Portland has been working hard to gain higher compliance with its permitting requirements around short-term rentals. These permits require basic inspection to ensure smoke alarms and appropriate egress and rental properties are in place, and other matters like reasonable neighborhood notification. We've had years of discussions and litigation with short-term rental platforms about increasing permitting compliance, and we're still experiencing very low compliance rates. Today, they are below 30%. While all platforms are now collecting and remitting our hotel motel taxes, which is an improvement, few have shown any real interest in aiding enforcement of city regulations. The ordinance before you today sets a clear path forward to gain higher compliance with our permits. Short-term rental platforms will have a choice: either enter into a data sharing agreement with the city to provide basic information about the location of short-term rentals in Portland, or facilitate bookings and transactions only for those short-term rentals that are on the list of permitted locations provided by the city. Revenue Director Thomas Lanham is here to walk us through the ordinance. Good morning.
Good morning, Mayor.
At this point.
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council. I'm Thomas Lanham with the Revenue Division of the Bureau of Revenue and Financial Services, and joining me is Mike from the Bureau of Development Services. You summarized it very well, Mayor, and I know it's already been a long day. I don't need to repeat a lot of that. I guess what I would say is what's changed recently is a panel of the Ninth Circuit ruled on an ordinance that was passed by the city of Santa Monica, California. And that ruling was upheld Santa Monica's ordinance. And this ordinance really mirrors the Santa Monica approach that has been tested in that court. And so in short, it sets up a registry of locations that have already got a permit, type A or B ASTR permit that Mike will speak about in a moment. And those are the only locations that can legally be advertised, that a short-term rental platform could receive fees for service for helping to book. So that's door number one. Door number two, we're still allowing the platforms to take, if they so choose, is that full-blown data sharing agreement, including transactional data, so we know how many nights each of these locations are booked. I will stop there and turn it over to Mike.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Mike Liefeld. I'm with the Bureau of Development Services Property Compliance Program. My team administers the BDS accessory short-term rental permit requirements as required by the Portland Zoning Code and performs complaint-based enforcement for violations of the city's ASTR regulations. During my short testimony, I will refer to accessory short-term rentals as ASTRs. BDS supports the proposed ordinance as it will greatly assist us in utilizing existing enforcement resources to ensure compliance with the city's ASTR regulations. The ordinance provides two paths for booking agents and operators to partner with the city to ensure that the carefully crafted and balanced ASTR regulations adopted in 2014 are met. A pass-through registration program can have benefits for both booking agents and the city. An important element of a pass-through agreement includes the ability to receive transactional data regarding ASTR operations. Transactional data is needed to help identify alleged commercial vacation rental operations that are an affront of the Portland Zoning Code. These operations can best be described as commercial vacation rentals with no permanent resident and not meeting the underlying zoning requirements that the use of the property remain residential or used as primary residence for an individual or family. The current ASTR regulations allow ASTR rentals 365 nights a year and do not require the required primary resident to be on site during any guest stay. Without transactional data, ASTR applications are essentially treated the same, with the city not having any additional information to best assign enforcement resources to tackle illegal commercial vacation rentals that have been and continue to be the main driver for existing BDS enforcement action. Based on our experience in responding to 635 ASTR complaints since 2014, and through issuance of 240 ASTR enforcement citations, we know that transactional data, that is, the frequency of guest bookings, is a strong indicator of a potential ASTR violation, even if the required ASTR permit has been issued. For BDS to achieve the goal of limiting illegal commercial ASTR operations, transactional data is needed. The second path provided to booking agents and operators allows industry partners to utilize short-term rental registries that only promote and advertise fully permitted and legal ASTR operations within the city of Portland. This approach will greatly improve compliance with the city's ASTR regulations, as non-permitted ASTR operations will need to make an immediate decision whether to embark on the required ASTR permitting process or simply discontinue the use. Since 2014, BDS has received much feedback regarding perceived barriers to compliance with the city's ASTR regulations. It is BDS's belief that the primary reason for the great disparity between the number of active ASTR listings on booking agents' online platforms compared to the low number of permitted ASTR properties within the city is simply due to the operator's inability to permit a legal operation. Frequent cited violations confirm that common operational violations surrounding offering a whole house rental that violates the maximum number of guests and bedrooms available for rent, as well as utilizing a vacation home without a primary resident, is the main driver. The ability to only allow ASTR bookings of fully permitted properties will drastically increase the compliance rate with the city's ASTR regulations. BDS supports the proposed ordinance as it will increase our ability to administer, monitor, and enforce the city's current ASTR regulations. I'm going to remain available for questions that might come up regarding administration of the program, and I thank you for the opportunity to provide comments.
Very good. Commissioner Fish.
Thank you. Mayor, looking back over my 10 years plus of service on this council, nothing has been more frustrating on a regulatory side than our continuing challenge to get the short-term rental industry and companies like Uber and Lyft and other TNCs to follow the rules that we've established that were designed to protect consumers and workers. And I think it has also been frustrating for the public to watch us fall short of ensuring public safety. When you say at the beginning of this hearing that less than 30% of short-term rental units are in compliance, what you're saying is that at any given moment, the city can't vouch for approximately 70% of the units that are being marketed online, which means we can't say for sure to a family or to anyone accessing these rentals that they're safe. We can't say for sure that there's adequate egress and ingress, that there's a smoke detector, that there's other things that are required. It has been really eye-opening to watch this new, I guess they call it the gig economy, operate. Because the gig economy has thumbed its nose at local regulators for a long time. And that's basically their business model. And in fact, as we speak today, Lyft and Uber are still working overtime in Salem to preempt the city of Portland from regulating short TNCs. So all the progress we've made in setting basic standards that protect workers and consumers are at risk because the legislature may, in the name of providing statewide access to these services, may throw in a preemption which limits our ability to look out for our local citizens, our local community members. So if this is a preview of the new gig economy, I would say God help us. Because there's a pattern of behavior. And it's contemptuous of local control, contemptuous of local regulations, and constantly using the courts to frustrate our ability to do reasonable regulations. And that, after all, is a cornerstone of our responsibility as local legislatures, is to make sure people are safe. So I am encouraged that we have a Ninth Circuit decision from Santa Monica that is on our side, although I'm reminded that I think the Ninth Circuit has the highest overturn rate in the country of any circuit. So we should hope that the Supreme Court doesn't take that case up and lets the Ninth Circuit decision stand. And Thomas, I know that you have been working hard to break through these barriers. And I appreciate what you said, that the principal barriers that people have faced isn't the fact that we've created burdensome regulations as a general matter. That's the rhetoric we hear, because any regulations are by definition burdensome, and that's the line used by these companies. But you've pointed out that many of the units would not qualify as short-term rentals under our code because the operators aren't following the law. And by not following the law, let's be very clear, we're not talking about some abstraction here. We're talking about people being less safe. And if tomorrow the headline was, city backs off regulating local motels and hotels and doesn't pay attention to basic life safety issues, or the Fire Bureau announces we're no longer checking public venues and we're gonna, caveat emptor, that's going exactly the wrong direction. But as frustrating as it has been, I think we're now at a moment where we can break through and get to the point we want, which is a much higher rate of compliance, so that we can sincerely say to people who are coming to our community that they are safe. And it's a no-brainer, but I just think people need to understand this has been a war waged by these gig companies that use every tool, including the federal courts, to frustrate local communities from doing reasonable regulations. And it has been enormously frustrating serving on this council and seeing the number of ways that we've been thwarted. And I sincerely hope that the legislature doesn't preempt our ability to regulate TNCs going forward. The bill, Susan McLean's bill, apparently is still on life support. It's going to come down to a question of whether the leadership of the legislature wants to see that bill get a hearing and ultimately see the light of day at the end. It would unravel years of work that we've done to protect workers and consumers, and it would effectively shut down the wage board that the Portland Bureau of Transportation has been working so hard to set up, which would address the concerns of drivers who, under current law, aren't sure whether they're independent contractors or employees. So I appreciate that we're at this moment where we think we have a legal hook. Thomas, I think we want to make sure you have the resources you need to aggressively move forward on this, but it's taken us way too long to get to this point. And I don't point any fingers to your shop, but I have learned some painful lessons about how some of these new gig companies view local regulators, and it's shameful. And it's led to a dismal compliance rate of under 30%, which is really a shocking number. So I thank you for bringing this forward, and I'm encouraged that armed with the circuit court decision, we may actually be able to close the loop on this. Thank you.
Mayor.
Commissioner Daly.
I'm going to save most of my comments for the vote, which I believe is coming next week, but I just want to signal my general support, my appreciation to Mike at BDS and to Revenue Division and to the mayor. It was one of my biggest frustrations and disappointments that I didn't get to make much progress on this issue while I was a commissioner in charge of BDS. We know beyond a doubt that short-term rental platforms are contributing to a global housing crisis, including our housing crisis right here in Portland. The city implemented some common sense regulations to try to mitigate those impacts on our rental markets as well as protect consumers and neighborhoods. But given that thousands of houses, rooms, and ADUs that were formerly rented out long-term are now on the short-term rental market, there is, again, no denying that it is impacting and accelerating our housing crisis. And the denial of these platforms, in particular Airbnb, which is the only group that I have met with, would be laughable if it weren't so offensive. So I'm going to support aggressive regulation and enforcements because we need to take care of our residents and our neighborhoods. People have plenty of places to stay when they come to our town.